Hello everyone, and welcome to Thought Soup. This is episode number 4. Today I'll be talking about ideas and where they come from. So where do ideas come from? Thoughts, ideas. Nobody knows. I'm a musician, so I'm not a professional musician, but as a musician, I have often melodies that come to my mind, whether I'm in the shower or I'm doing something. All of a sudden I'll have a melody that comes to mind. I've often wondered, where did that come from? What about those geniuses that invent incredible things for us? And often they say they were just doing some random stuff, and all of a sudden the idea pops into their mind. And they use the word often, pop, like a bubble that bursts into their mind. It's incredibly fascinating. No one really knows. Paul McCartney famously said about one of his very famous tunes, I can't remember which, where he says, I don't really understand how I'm making all this incredible amount of money from this one song and I'm getting all the credit when it just appeared in my mind. He says, I woke up one morning with this song and it stayed there for a couple weeks. It wouldn't go away. So I just wrote it and sang it. And people appreciated it and thought it was me. But he says famously, I had nothing to do with it. I didn't look for it, it just came. Fascinating. What is fascinating also is that we have ideas. First, let me clarify something. I'm not talking about the thought process or the idea that comes upon another one. For example, if I'm, as a musician, if I'm writing a tune, I'm already in the mindset of writing this tune. And then I'm like, well, why don't I add a shaker just to give it a little bit of texture? Or if you're an engineer, you're working on this structure and you're like, well, why don't we put up a beam over here just to give it more support? That's not exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these eureka moments, about these ideas that seem to come out of nowhere that are so amazing. If we think of Steve Jobs inventing the smartphone. Pretty crazy, right? So at some point, these geniuses are just doing something and this thought, this idea just pops literally into their minds. There's a famous, well, it's not famous, but there's a cute joke that I really like, and it goes like this. These two old friends meet up for dinner. One of them is an astronaut, and his friend is a brain surgeon, and they're sipping with wine. And the astronaut at one point looks at his friend and says, you know, I've traveled the entire planet. I've even went to outer space. I've seen the stars from outer space and I've seen our own planet from outer space. And you know what? I've never seen God. His friend takes a sip of wine and says, you know, I've operated on so many brains, I can't even count them. And I've never seen a thought. This really illustrates, I think, it's quite apropos, how ideas and thoughts are very mysterious. One thing that does happen, usually, is when we have an idea, whatever the idea may be, we think it's my idea, even though we don't know where it came from. But we take it for ourselves. We'll patent it, of course, and get all the legal stuff out of the way to make sure we get credit for it. But most of all, we naturally think the idea is correct. We think it's not flawed. We think it's probably perfect. Which is absurd. So much so that if I'm even convinced my idea is right, I will convince others that my idea is correct. And non-content with that, I will convince as many people as I can to even go to war against other people who don't believe my thought. I won't hesitate in killing millions of people just because I had a thought. History is full of examples. We don't need to go far to think of Stalin and Mao and probably Genghis Khan, Caesar, Hitler. It's crazy. Pol Pot, Pinochet. We've killed millions of people just because we had a thought and we were convinced it was correct and we had to impose it on everybody. And yet, we have no idea where this thought came from. We don't know if it's right. We just know that it's ours, and since it's ours, it is correct, and we will fight for it. Pretty crazy when you think of it. So ideas, original ideas, breakthroughs, come from what we call universal consciousness, the source. It just comes. Where did Mozart's melodies come from? They popped into his mind, already finished, already arranged, every single note, as if somebody was dictating it to him. But the fact that it comes from this universal consciousness doesn't mean it's yours at all. And it certainly doesn't mean it's right or it needs to be imposed on everybody. It just is. It's a thought. It's an idea, among others. That's it. No more, no less. So perhaps we could use a little bit of humility towards our own thoughts and ideas, and a bit of caution, since we know nothing about them, and we certainly don't know anything about where it's coming from. So that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next week. Oh, let me tell you what the topic will be, because as usual, I don't remember it. Oh, and the topic will be about ego. So we're getting there slowly, coming from different angles. So we'll talk about ego. What is ego? It makes me laugh, actually. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.